This interview is being conducted by Legend Books with the author of the novel Orion and a book about the book entitled The Most Incredible Elvis Presley Story Ever Told. Hello, I'm Jeff Prue, and we have with us today author Gail Brewer Giorgio. It's good to have you here today, Gail.
Thank you, Jeff.
Tell us a little bit about the book Orion. I understand that this is fiction, but it's had a very strange story in real life. Tell us how it happened.
I started the book in 1977. I guess I was inspired by the death of Elvis Presley. I thought a phenomenon had occurred. Everybody was making an exodus to Memphis. I kept thinking, my God, a president hasn't died. Later, I decided that I would like to create a contemporary hero. And I created Orion out of a combination of mythology, religion, brought it together into a singer. I wrote the book in about 54 days, at least the first draft. You have to remember, there were literally no books or biographies out about Elvis Presley, so I didn't have anything to copy. And I didn't want to copy. If I had wanted to write a biography, I would have. Basically, I wanted to create a hero of fiction, and I wanted that hero to hoax his own death.
Now, how did you come up with that idea?
Well, in mythology, basically, the legend Orion has a derivative, which is Orion, A-R-I-O-N. And it's about a man who sang. He was being penalized for being a great singer. His life was in danger, and so in order to save his life, he's out to sea, and he begs the sailors to let him sing once more. He jumps to the ocean and is saved by the dolphins and is taken to an island, and they think he's dead. The whole story actually comes from the mythology Orion, and it's amazing how close it may have come to the life of Elvis Presley. I guess that's when my troubles began.
Someone sent you a mystery tape of some
Yeah.
kind.
The book had gone through several releases, Simon & Schuster, Pocket Books, etc., and then the book mysteriously disappeared in about 1981.
You mean it just disappeared off the
Just
bookshelves?
disappeared, yeah. A lot of things had happened during that period. Of course, that's why I've written a book about the book. But last year, I was presented with a tape in front of witnesses. There were two ladies, actually, that presented me with a tape.
Now, is this an audio tape or a videotape or
audio?
Strictly audio?
Yeah, audio.
Mm-hmm.
I was told right up front that the tape had been doctored. The person that the voice is talking to has cut their voice out deliberately. The voice on the tape had been talking on the telephone to someone who was recording. The women who had given me the tape really didn't want to say too much. There are other reasons for that. Their identity, their personal involvement with Elvis Presley, and also they believed that Elvis Presley, or more than believed, they told me he was alive and that they understood why the things happened to my book that did. I was told to get a voice print. Well, the voice print expert was in Texas, had some association with the Watergate tapes, etc. And they compared it with known interviews with Elvis Presley. The voice print came back December 15th of 87, and it came back as positive.
Positive meaning?
Meaning that the voice on the mystery tape and that of the known element being Elvis Presley, with a reasonable assurance, was one and the same. What they were unable to ascertain is when it was actually done.
Mm-hmm. In other words, there's nothing, at least as far as what you've heard on this tape, that would absolutely prove that it was made after August 16th, 1977.
There's nothing in the sense that when you're talking to someone on the phone, you say, hello, so-and-so, today is January 8th, 19 such and such, and I'm talking to you. No. In fact, if it were on the tape, I'd be very suspicious. But by the context of the tape, I believe it was done after August 16th, 1977, because of what he says.
What we have here then with your book and this tape, actually both of your books, but certainly the novel Orion, we have a situation, perhaps, are you saying that this is sort of life imitating art, or vice versa?
Exactly. So many of the things that I wrote in Orion began to come true after the fact, and I believe I was penalized for it.
Well, I'm dying to hear this tape, so let's play some of this tape right now.
Okay.
People ask me all the time where I'm living, and naturally I can't say, but it's a good place to hide. It actually started when I arrived in Hawaii, I made arrangements with a friend of mine to fly me out of the state. You know, it was really something, because everything worked just like it was meant to be. I mean, there was an island that I had learned about a long time ago, and I guess I always knew that someday I'd probably have to use it. Anyway, I really can't say that I didn't need the rest. Slowly, I started getting myself in shape. I didn't sing much. I had needed the rest even more than I knew. But after about a year, I started missing the people and the entertaining. I mean, I've been entertaining people the better part of my life, and it's very hard to stop from doing something that you've been doing that long. But I started traveling all over the world, and it's been enjoyable, but it's been a constant battle of growing beards and this and that to keep from being recognized. And I guess about 2 years ago, I went to Europe, which is something I've always wanted to do, something I've wanted to do for a long time. I mean, I've always been sorry that I didn't go to Europe before, but I could have. I guess I just didn't take the time. Anyway, the first place that I wanted to see in Germany was a place called Wiesbaden. I don't know whether or not you've ever seen Wiesbaden before, but my girlfriend was with me, and we went to a place to get something to eat. And a waitress asked me what we'd like to have. And I said, I don't know really, what would you suggest? And she stood still. She just kept staring at me, and I started getting very nervous. Now at the time, I had a beard and I lost a few pounds, and I thought it would be very, very hard for anyone to recognize me. And then she asked me if I'd ever been to Germany in the past, and then I got more nervous. But she said, you know, I never forget a face. And then she said, I don't know how you did it. She said, I don't care how you did it. She said, I just hope that you're as happy as you've made me tonight. And, you know, that's the type of experience that I'll never forget.
There's something that struck me in this portion of the tape. He says that he was sorry that he didn't go to Europe. As we all know, he did spend his military tour of duty back in the 1950s in Germany. How do you resolve that question?
I think a lot of people that have been in the service do not consider that going to Europe. I have a neighbor who says he would love to go to Europe. My husband and I had gone to Europe, and he said, I'd love to go to Europe. And then after he said that, he told me about the experiences he had in France when he was in the Army. So I do believe that that's probably what he was referring to, that he didn't perform or tour Europe.
And then he's referring to that woman he was talking to, apparently. She says, I don't care how you did it.
Right.
How do you interpret that?
I don't see that there can be any other interpretation. He is obviously talking about Wiesbaden, and he says he got more nervous because she said, "I never forget a face," which refers to him being there before. I take it to mean that she was recognizing him.
Based on what we've heard so far, can you actually tell when this tape was made?
I was told it was made in 1981.
All right, that would be 4 years after the death of Elvis
Right,
Presley.
right. Now, he does mention in here that he was growing beards to keep from being recognized, getting himself in shape. He talks about having gone to Hawaii, which I thought was interesting because in Orion, fictionally, Orion escapes to Hawaii. Of course, I used my Hawaii because of the connotation of the Orion mythology. I found it very, very strange that he said Hawaii, but Elvis Presley loved Hawaii.
Hey, let's listen to the next part of this tape.
And there's been a lot of times I would like to have changed some things, but I've learned that once something is done, you can't look back. I mean, sometimes it's not good to look back. And I think you know that she means as much to me as life itself. And hopefully, the good Lord willing, sometime, fate will be kind to us and I'll see her again.
Now, in that portion of the tape, he refers to a she. Who do you think he means by she there?
I would guess that he is referring to Lisa. One of the things we have to keep in mind as we listen to this tape is the person he's talking to must have asked about her. And by the description, I would think it would be Lisa. We also have to keep in mind the person that he's talking to. If he is asking her about members of her family, she would take that out. So sometimes the conversation sounds a little rambly, but we have to remember that it is not a monologue. He is actually talking to someone.
So in other words, he's responding to someone's questions is what it appears to be.
In fact, when you listen to the tape, and the voice print expert pointed this out, the stops and the starts are a pretty poor job, I think, of taking your voice out. The voice print expert made a point of saying that this was probably about 4 conversations put together. That explains why the subject matter changes. Perhaps when the phone conversations were being recorded, if that's what it was, there might have been repetition too of certain things, but when it was put together in such a way that they could get as much on one side.
All right, well then let's go on to the next portion of the tape.
As far as enjoying life now, you know, I can go to football games and to the movies, but what interests me most is seeing people in a way that I hadn't before. I mean, I've talked to people that have been sick and that I thought I could help in some way. And for me, that has to be the best part of life. As far as she is concerned, or any part of my family, I really don't think it's a good idea right now. I mean, there's no hard feelings or anything, but she's always wanted her own life, and it makes me happy just to see that she's all right. You know, a lot of times people walk up to me and they say that they're concerned about people finding out. And then they think about it for a while, and then they usually say that nobody believes them anyway.
Now, in what we've just heard there, he's referring to another she. I'm assuming it's a different person because he's talking about no hard feelings. Who do you suppose that she is?
I would think he could be talking about Priscilla.
Do you have any idea where he could go to football games or be in large crowds, going to movies and so on, and not be recognized?
He probably, under normal circumstances, would have been recognized, but with the fact nobody would be looking for him since he no longer exists. He would have a new identity. He says at different points he's growing beards and wearing sunglasses. He probably isn't as heavy as he once was. I have been told that he has a code name. This person has been recognized, and they've said, well, he looks like an older Elvis Presley. Well, he would be an older Elvis Presley because he'd be 53 and not 42.
Have you ever imagined what he would look like as far as his color of his hair?
His hair had turned prematurely gray like his father's. If you had seen Vernon, his hair was a whitish gray. Also, I understand his mother's hair had turned prematurely gray too, and she dyed it. Elvis was known to dye his hair.
I don't know. In the first place, it would be foolish to walk back into a lifestyle that I just escaped from. But I'm going to continue my music and give people as much of what they want as I can. I've had people write letters to me that have been just fantastic. It's nice to know that there are people that are truly concerned about you. And when you have friends like this, and when people care about you that much, I mean, you have to do something. And there's a lot of things I would like to do, and there's a lot of music that I would like to attempt.
Now, on that particular portion of the tape, he's talking about how foolish it would be for him to walk back into a lifestyle that he worked so hard to escape from.
That's a key phrase as far as I'm concerned. It explains why he did what he wanted to do. He left his lifestyle. He didn't just simply go into hiding. He said, I escaped from it. He does talk about still wanting to give people music.
How do you think he would be able to do that?
Well, we have a lot of speculation. Without going through my whole book, there has been speculation as to using a cover, coming out under another name. He would have to come out under another name, and the reason being is that if he didn't, he would be forced to do the same old music, or music that had been copyrighted pre-1977, which really would have boxed him in. By coming out under perhaps another name, he would cause a lot of controversy, certainly.
He might even be perceived as an Elvis imitator.
That's true. That's true. One of the things about an Elvis imitator, though, in order to imitate, they need the lights and the costumes and the razzmatazz. They don't record, because they don't record like Elvis Presley. And a lot of them even lip sync to Elvis music. If he is going to do other albums, other material, he would have to come out under another name. He would also have to use that name and be able to disappear whenever he wanted. One thing, a mysterious singer, Orion, also came into view about the same time my book did, and also disappeared, by the way, the same time the book did. Many people have questioned who's on the album, but we can't see a face that's recording, and so they can put any face or any name on. And that is the question that I delve into in my book, and I think I've come up with some pretty good answers.
Now, I was intrigued also the fact that this voice that's purported to be Elvis Presley's is saying that people are concerned about him and are writing letters to him. Does that suggest that there are other people in on this secret?
Graceland, number one, is receiving a tremendous amount of letters. Elvis Presley is making more money now, in quote, death, than he did in life. But there is a legion of fans, a legion of legitimate media out there. Not that we're not, but I'm talking about 2020. They actually did a whole hour on the cover-up of the death of Elvis Presley. But the fans, there are just legions of fans who believe, one, that he's alive, or two, that there's a major cover-up. If there's a major cover-up, then the question is why a major cover-up. So yes, many, many letters are coming to Graceland.
As far as the dating is concerned, Uh, I still date. I'm dating a young lady right now that has been very helpful to me as far as keeping my sanity, and she's been good for me. When we first met, she kept telling me how much she liked my music. And she kind of looked at me in shock when we first met, like most people, but she was glad I was still here, and one thing led to another, and now she goes with me just about every place I go. I mean, it's nice. I have a lot of time on my hands now, and I'm getting back into sports a lot. I'm still working out, and playing racquetball and karate whenever I get a chance. It's helped me to stay in shape, and the clean living surely can't hurt.
Now, he mentioned in the portion we just heard a young lady friend. Now, assuming that Elvis is now in his early 50s, how young would a young lady be?
Elvis had a wonderful way of speaking about women as young ladies. I thought it was interesting, too, that he says that she kind of looked at me in shock when we first met, like most people, but she was glad I was still here. Again, to me, that dates it as after August 16, 1977. Why would, prior to that, anyone say, gee, I'm glad you're still here, and I'm shocked to see that you are? Basically, that's what he is saying.
Now, I notice he also referred to playing racquetball and getting into karate. Again, he stresses clean living. How can we square a remark like that against all of these allegations about drug abuse that have seemed to dog his life and certainly his death? How do you square those two?
The next part of the tape we're going to hear, he talks about that. I have read many biographies on him. I think the drug problem, if it was a problem, was overstated. In 1970, Elvis was appointed by Richard Nixon as an agent of the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. And in many biographies, which people overlooked, it is stated that Elvis pretended to be whacked out. I think he pretended to do this so he could listen in on conversations about him. We must also take in consideration that when they talk about the, quote, drug abuse, they're talking about prescribed drugs for medical reasons. Because autopsy remains have been destroyed according to 2020 and some of the other biographies, I believe it was overstated also. If we want to listen to the next part of the tape, he talks about that.
All right, I'm curious. I'd like to hear this.
That's one thing that has always gotten to me. I mean, there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money off the drug thing, and if that's what makes them happy, that's fine. But it's not true. And the fact of the matter is that I haven't even taken a sleeping pill in 3 years. If I had the chance to do everything again, I'd probably make the same mistakes. But you grow attached to people, and you grow attached to people that are with you, and your life a lot of times becomes more important to people than you even realize. Yourself sometimes, you try to help as many people as you can, and sometimes you try to please someone, and sometimes you can't please anybody. A lot of times I felt the image hurt me, but I always knew there'd be a price I'd have to pay. there's a lot of people that are lonely. I mean, you don't have to be on the poor side of life to be lonely. You don't have to be rich to be lonely. You can be standing in a group of 100 people and you can be lonely. It's a strange thing, you know. Lately, I've been trying to write music, which is something I've always wanted to do. And I just never took the time. And I'm trying to play the guitar better. I still play the piano. I've spent most of my time getting myself back into shape, and it's not easy to get everything done at the same time. And there's been a lot of things that have happened. I've got to be very careful. I mean, I met a young lady in a supermarket once, and she kept following me. And finally she said, "I almost can't believe it, but I think I know who you are." And I said, "Honey, if you don't tell anybody," I said, "I won't." And right then and there in the supermarket, she started crying. And I said, "Honey, don't you cry." And the tears just started falling down her face. And she put her arms around me. And she said, "I feel I know what you've been through." And she said, "I'll always love you." And you know, things like that are experiences that you just can't buy. It's very hard to forget anything like that. But things like that have been happening to me a lot.
Well, it's obvious he's incensed by the references to drug abuse. What sort of illnesses did he take drugs for?
He had glaucoma, so he took drugs for that. He had colon problems. A lot of the biographies state a lot of medical problems that he did have. I think he had a high blood pressure, but he had a high energy level, Elvis Presley did. And I just find it very hard that a man could have stood on his feet and did the grueling performances he did that last year and be a drug addict. I just do not believe it. I don't think it's physically possible.
Interestingly, he mentioned that he had not taken a sleeping pill in 3
years. Yeah.
Now, assuming that this tape was made in 1981 or 1980, that would take it back to approximately 1977.
That's right.
When he had taken his last sleeping pill. He refers also about a young woman in the supermarket. Now, in your book, Orion, near the end of you refer to Orion being recognized in telling someone, "If you don't say anything about it, I won't."
Yeah,
and here again we have
it's
life
amazing
imitating art.
Yeah, it really is. He does talk about meeting this woman, and I find too that when she said, "I almost can't believe it, but I know who you are," again, when he says, "Honey, if you don't tell anybody, I won't," I find it very hard to believe that pre-1977 he would have taken a chance of walking around supermarkets, etc. I think he felt free to do it after 77 because, frankly, people weren't looking for him. He was supposedly dead.
One of the things that has struck me, too, as we listen to these clips of this tape is how these people who he claims to have seen him, how can they keep this a secret? Why isn't this out? Why aren't people running around whispering?
Actually, it is out. That's the strange part about it. Merle Haggard made a comment in People magazine about he feeling that Elvis Presley was alive. People have reported seeing him, but let's face it, Jeff, if you were sitting on an airplane next to someone who looked like Elvis Presley, you might look at him and say, he looks like Elvis Presley or an older Elvis Presley, and even if he told you he was, You probably wouldn't believe him, number one. Number two, if you did believe him, there's very few people who believe you.
That's right.
So I think that was his cover also, is that people just simply aren't going to believe it.
All right, let's move on.
I don't think anybody can tell really what's going to happen from one day to the next. But I'm not completely in hiding now. You know, I mean, I'm seen by people all the time. As far as appearing nationally, I think it would be silly, to say the least, to get back into something that's taken me this long to get out of. But I'd like to continue my music. I'd like to do some new things. I'd like to do some things that, because of contracts or something, couldn't be done in the past. But mostly, I just want to continue to entertain people. I've said it before, and it's something that is in my mind, and I just like to get into it as much as I used to. And I'm sure that sometime in the near future it has to happen, but until it does, I'll just go on living as normal a life as I possibly can. I don't think anybody could have asked for anything that could have worked any better than what has happened to me. Sometimes I feel like, instead of being on an island, that I am an island. You know, it's kind of hard to go through this life with just memories, and it seems like that's what I have now, but I would still like to give back a lot to people that have given so much to me. I'm hoping that a lot of people out there are not disappointed with me. I mean, I didn't mean to put anybody through any pain. It's taken a lot to have to do what I had to do. But I think in the long run that it's going to pay off. I believe that doing things this way have made it a lot easier for me and for everybody else to find out exactly what's going on as far as the music is concerned, and being able to make things happen better now. I don't know, life is very strange. I've gone through so many different types of experiences that I don't even know sometimes where I'm at, but I've learned a lot from the things I've gone through, and I'm always learning more. There isn't any way that you can stop learning. You have to continue to learn. I know there's a lot of movies that have come out that past and the recent past. But I haven't enjoyed it all. It's an interesting thing, but when you're involved in entertainment, you realize that there's a lot of things, like an image and various other things, that people try to portray. They try to make you a certain way. And I think they're doing the same thing with the movies, you know. They want to make things come out a certain way, and if they don't, you know, I guess they feel they haven't done their job.
All right, I was curious about something he mentioned there about being silly to come out and appear nationally. Do you think he would ever do it?
It's hard to say what he would do. He does make mention that he's not completely in hiding and that he's seen by people all the time. I have a feeling that a man whose life has been music is not going to completely give it up. It wasn't the music that he disliked anyway. I think it was his way of life. After all, Graceland had become a mausoleum for Elvis Presley. He had to leave his house hidden in the trunk of a car. He couldn't go anyplace. But I totally believe, he's either already producing music and we've heard it and don't realize it, or definitely something is in the making. 10 years is a long time. Of course, he's only talking here about 3 or 4 years. I believe he's probably been doing something.
I'm curious, too, as to how he explains about hoping that a lot of people aren't disappointed with me. How could someone be disappointed with someone who's dead?
I think he's talking about the fact that people will realize that he's still here. I'm sure if he's still here, that family members are aware of it. But that the fans at large would be disappointed with him. My answer to that is, having talked to so many of the fans, I can't even tell you how many fans have called me with information and please do this book and please go on with it and tell your story. They said that they understand. I suppose there'll be a few that'll be angry, but for the most part I think that Elvis gave them an awful lot. I think they do totally understand, just like the woman in the supermarket said. She does understand, and I think she reflects how people feel. There's very few of us that could ever have lived a total life of being imprisoned by their fame, such as Elvis Presley. I do think the fans understand, but he certainly worries about it. I think he cares about them.
Now, he also refers to some movies that have come out in the recent past, and obviously, because he says he doesn't enjoy them, he's not referring then to movies that he appeared in himself.
Doesn't sound like it. It sounds like there were some movies right after August 16th, 1977.
Would these be like documentaries?
There were documentaries. There was a movie that was called Elvis, produced by Dick Clark. It was #1 in the ratings when it was on. It starred Kurt Russell. And I believe there were some other things that were done. I didn't see them all. Apparently, it misrepresented what he was. It was unflattering or overly flattering, but an image that certainly he didn't agree with. He says they wish they had asked him. Of course, they couldn't have asked him.
All right, well then let's move on to the next portion of the tape.
But it's just like the drug thing that I was talking about. The movies, a lot of it is just simply not true. There isn't a lot that I can do about it. You know, I wish that they'd asked me about it before they ever made the movie, but there isn't a lot I can do right now. I do believe that there's a lot of people that will never forget, and that's good, because sometimes you feel as though you're the only one with any memories, and it's nice to feel that there are people that remember too. I'm looking forward to spending this coming Christmas in a new way. It's always been a very happy time of the year for me, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to possibly seeing some people that are going to be shocked. I'm just hoping that these people that I'm going to see, they won't be hurt. But I know that they're going to be shocked. And it's going to be good because Christmas time is a good time of year to make everything okay, to mend. And so, if there's ever a time that I could make an appearance, or that I could come out into the open, I think Christmas time would be it.
Well, he's referring here to this coming Christmas, I guess, to use his words. That would mean what, Christmas of 1981, 82?
Probably around that time frame. He's really not talking about coming out, but about seeing people that are going to be shocked. And I think that's
close friends.
I would think so. Friends, perhaps some relatives that didn't know. Obviously, when you say seeing people and they're going to be shocked, again, that seems to date it after August 77, because he would have not shocked people prior to Christmas.
Well, it also suggests to me that there are an awful lot of people keeping a secret. I mean, as we keep listening to this tape, we keep hearing more and more people who he's referring to have seen him, or he's going to see all these people.
I'm not so sure they're keeping it a secret, or I wouldn't be here. I do believe it falls back again to who would believe me anyway, and if you were a close friend, you might tell another close friend. They might believe you, but I don't think if you stood up on some kind of platform and said, I've seen him, that they would believe you. So I think that's what he's probably referring to.
Okay, we'll play some more of this tape.
I'm looking forward to a lot of new things in the future. I've made a lot of new friends, and I just think that I think it's going to be better this time. You know, I can look out the window now and I can see a lot. I can see a lot more than I ever have. And I guess the reason for that is because now I can actually go to the place that I'm looking at, and I can be alone. I can be around people and do the type things that I'd like to do without having 100 people there on my side. You know, it's a different experience for me. It's a good experience. I realize that sooner or later it's probably going to end. You know, I'd hate to think that it's going to end, but I know sometimes the secret has got to be let out. If it hadn't been for being involved in what I'm involved in now, you know, things as such maybe have been different, but it's not, and I have to do my music. There's no getting around it. I just can't go on without entertaining. So hopefully things will work out better this time. I don't know. We just have to wait and see.
He's talking about something going to be better this time. How could things be better than the life he lived before, really?
Well, apparently the life he lived before was not a good life.
Not a happy life?
I don't believe it was happy. I believe, again, that it was a gilded mausoleum. He does talk about the fact that the secret is going to be let out sooner or later. He does realize that something is going to end, and I believe the something he's talking about is probably being in hiding totally. But he also seems to think or have a plan that when he does come back out, assuming he is alive, that it will work better. Probably will work better because, number one, no one will know where Elvis Presley lives. He did not have that advantage beforehand. I read a statistic the other day that there are two houses most recognizable in the world. One's the White House, and the second one is Graceland. So with that in mind, I think you know what he had to go through. However, I do not believe outside the White House, thousands of fans cling to the gate to the point that he at one point had hired a look-alike, at least I read this, to leave in one car so that he could escape in the other. This might sound fun for a little while for most of us, but I do not think it's fun on a daily basis.
He keeps referring also to, I have to do my music, I want to do some writing. If he does do music again, in what form would it be? Would it be strictly in a recording studio?
I think probably albums will be one way, perhaps a video. Performing, one doesn't know if he has not performed. Again, I touch upon this in the book about the book, The Most Incredible Elvis Presley Story Ever Told. There has been some speculation that he has performed. Yeah, I believe he will. I believe his safety and his privacy will be that no one will know where he is once he leaves. But you have to remember, Elvis Presley is no longer 42. Elvis Presley's not 33. He's not the Adonis we remember him. Elvis Presley is a man heading toward his mid-50s. One of these days, Elvis Presley could be a grandfather, and that's going to be very hard for the average female. So I don't think the performing will certainly be the way it was. But obviously, the music's important.
Certainly not the voice. The voice wouldn't be the same. You hear a lot of the great singers, and their voices do give out. They have difficulty reaching higher notes.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, we'll move on to the next portion of this very, very interesting tape.
I know that I've been very fortunate, as I said, and the Lord has helped me through everything. And I don't see how this can be any different. I think there's new things coming. I think that it's going to be good for everybody. I'd like to finish the book that has already been started about my life as far as what I've been doing in the last 3 to 4 years. I'm working on an album, something that I wanted to do in the last few years. I'm trying to get a hold of the people that have helped me in the past, to help me with the music, and put out maybe the best album that I've ever put out. I don't know if we can get a hold of all the people, but we're working on it. And it's something that I think everybody can look forward to. I think a lot of people have given me the chance to continue without bringing me too far out into the open. It's taken a lot to get me in hiding. It would be a shame if things just turned around in 5 seconds.
What we've just heard there, he's talking about taking a lot to get him into hiding. What sort of things?
Well, obviously, total hiding the way he supposedly did it, leaving the one life behind and going into another life. He planned it, apparently. Prior even to August 16th, 1977, he cleaned house. He got rid of the Memphis Mafia. They gave the excuse, if it was an excuse, that the payroll was overextended, and so they let a lot of those people that were very close to Elvis go. So I think it did take a lot. It would be very hard just to do what he did, to actually do it, to be so fed up with a kind of life, and that's not fed up with the music, not fed up with the fans per se, because he loved the fans. But the whole life of not being able to ever go to a football game, just the simple things. He says to see people the way he wanted to see them took a lot to get him into hiding, and I think he's afraid that if he comes out, what would happen. It's a real wait-and-see attitude he has right now, and I would imagine one day he thinks about it, and the next day he gets scared stiff.
And of course that raises a very, very basic question. Who was that then in the coffin at Graceland on August 17th, 1977, lying in state as hundreds, thousands of people passed by the coffin inside the
Including you, I
Graceland.
understand.
That's right.
You were sent there.
I would like to know who that was.
There's a lot of speculation, obviously. The majority of the fans have written in their newsletters and periodicals. I've had journalists call me, I've been a journalist, that guess it was a wax dummy. There's been questions as to why the coffin weighed 900 pounds. Some have speculated that it had a cooling unit in it to cool a wax dummy. I don't know who was in the coffin, but that seems to be the number one guess.
And it seems to be the number one question, I think, among a lot of the skeptics, does it not?
Well, a lot of people wonder why Vernon would have even put his son on display. It was a thou protest too much kind of thing. When Elvis's mother died, he was very upset, and so was Vernon, that her funeral had turned into a circus. It seems very, very odd that with great deliberation that this particular viewing and funeral had turned into a circus by invitation. So the only thing I can think of is if they had had a very, very quiet, dignified, private kind of funeral, people would not have believed he died. Therefore, put the body or whatever on display. And again, this is all guesswork, and it's not simply my guesswork. I'm mimicking thousands of fans out there. Put something on display and say, there he is. Now you can leave him alone, go away. There's nobody here anymore for you to see. I can't come up with another reason.
And I think another question that a lot of people want to know, too, is that to pull off something like this grandiose scheme, it just seems that too many things could go wrong, does it not to you?
Oh, absolutely. Many things went wrong. That's what's so funny. Again, I get into
and
this.
You talk about this in your book.
In the book, yeah. There's tremendous amount of things that went wrong. There's so many, many questions that if you just took one question alone out of my book, you would have enough to speculate as to what happened. There's just so much. But again,
What would be perhaps one single thing that sort of jumps out at you in which they appear to have botched?
Well, the name on
scheme?
the grave. Elvis's middle name was A-R-O-N.
Aaron.
Aaron, yes. And again, I go through in my book as to why he was named with a single A. It had to do with his being born a twin. The legal documents that are all with the single A. RCA's promotion has the single A. The death certificate, which I go through in the book because that raises a lot of questions that I won't get into it right now. But the name itself, Elvis's middle name was A-R-O-N. But Vernon, on the tombstone at Graceland, the eternal monument to Elvis Presley, has spelled his son's name with the double A.
Like in Hank Aaron.
That's right. At the bottom of the tombstone, it says, by Vernon Presley.
Now, wouldn't that be an honest mistake, though?
Yes. Yeah, you would misspell your son's name, the most famous face in the world. There are other things about the grave that raises questions. Superstition is funny. And not only was Elvis very religious and his family religious, but I would imagine there were some superstitions. A lot of people don't buy plots because they're superstitious. They don't want to fulfill anything. But if we were, we wouldn't have our tombstone made. It seems to me that it was just a way of saying he's not buried there. That's one example.
But it's given me a lot of time to work, whereas before I didn't have any time to work. I just constantly had to keep doing the same things over and over again, as far as music is concerned. And I kept putting out the same things all the time. It's hard to get something the way you want it. it changes drastically if you've been used to the way you've been doing it in the past, and especially if you haven't got any time. I didn't have any time before. My time was taken up. But this is different. This gives me a chance to really get into something. To make it a piece of material that I can do the way I want to do it, instead of the way somebody is telling me they want some way and this and that, and just making it a big, sometimes I thought a mess, you know. I just have to do things this time the way I want it, and I think it will work a lot better. And the first album that we've already released is something that was done a few months ago, and I enjoyed it, but I'll tell you, I didn't really think that we'd ever release it. There was a lot of over-remembering on the songs, and we tried some new songs and things, and it was a lot of fun, you know. I had a lot of fun doing it. But the next album that we put out, I really hope that we can get a hold of everyone that has helped in the past, because it was going to be it would be a rewarding experience to think that everything could work so smoothly. My whole life has been something out of a dream, and to have this happen, I mean to get all the people together that had me in the past to help with a new album. And after everything that's already happened, it would have to be the biggest experience in my life, and I'm certain it would be good for them too. I'm looking forward to it. And you know, many times we despair, and we think that life has somehow passed us by. But you know, dreams can come true.
Well, Gail, it's been a real pleasure talking with you here about this extraordinary tape recording we've just listened to, and also learning more about your book entitled The Most Incredible Elvis Presley Story Ever Told. Gail, do you really think Elvis Presley is still alive? Honest now.
I haven't seen him personally, so I really don't know. There has been times, though, I've received some very mysterious phone calls, and I don't know if I've spoken to him or not.
I mean, the calls have come in
To this house.
to this house.
Yes, yes. And again, I talk about it in the book. All I can say is they'll have to read the book Orion. They'll have to read the book about the book. And the people will have to be the judge. They've listened to the tape. They can check the evidence. All I can say is they will have to be the judge. As Elvis says on the tape, nobody would believe it anyway.